You fucking coward. Why are you so desperate to be with people who hate you?
Atre didn't seem like a character made for redemption. If you think about how he starts out in The Boys, it's hard to imagine anyone less deserving of forgiveness. Atre starts off as a man so used to running over others that he can't even tell the difference between a person and an obstacle anymore. And yet, that's where things get interesting, because Atre doesn't get a clean redemption. There's no magical moment where he suddenly becomes a good person. He feels guilt, fear, and shame, and he has to learn, too late, that the harm he did to others can come back to him too. That's why Atre's arc works so well, because it's not just about a villain turning into a hero. It's about a man who spent his whole life running from his conscience, until he couldn't keep running anymore. And today, I want to talk specifically about that, about Atre's redemption, about the price of guilt, and about how The Boys turned a character who seemed disposable into one of the toughest and most interesting arcs in the series.
It's bullshit, right? You're not gonna forgive me.
I can't stop.
The first image we get of Atre and The Boys is really important, since Atre runs right through Robin in front of Hughie, turns her into mush, and leaves Hughie holding only her hands. From the very beginning, the show doesn't present him as a tragic villain, but as a man so used to power that he doesn't even see regular people as people anymore. Here, Atre is pure narcissism and cowardice. Vought tries to buy Hughie's silence with money and a non-disclosure agreement. Robin's death becomes, for them, a public relations problem, with zero respect for the victim.
Nobody can look me in the fucking eye and say, I'm sorry.
In fact, he even jokes about what happened, saying he must have swallowed one of Robin's teeth. It's not just about the act itself, but about Atre's complete dehumanization.
You're laughing like she's a joke.
All of this shows us just how corrupt the world of The Boys is, but it also tells us something very important about A-Train. It makes us understand that it's not that he does things because of trauma or anything like that, but rather that he's someone with privilege, arrogance, and power, and he uses it for his own interests.
It's so easy to become a monster around here.
It's not that A-Train is cruel like Homelander is, but rather that he's someone who goes along with a corrupt system. A system that covers up any mistake he makes. And that's why the feeling of guilt takes so long to show up.
How many times do I have to tell you that A-Train needs to be scripted? When he does not have a script, this is what happens.
I'm on it.
A-Train is a celebrity protected by a massive corporation with a carefully crafted public image, and by a system that tells him every day that his worth is above any harm he might cause. When you live like that, your conscience doesn't disappear completely, but it kind of goes numb. He spent too much time in an environment where other people's suffering isn't seen as a moral issue, but as a PR problem and a threat to his career. If we look at it symbolically, his super speed could be closely tied to that mentality. As long as he keeps running, he doesn't have to face his guilt. He doesn't have to think about what he did.
You just get away with everything, don't you? Just running past all the broken people you leave behind.
And soon after, we find out that A-Train is using Compound V, to the point that Popclaw reminds them that the last time he was on that stuff, he killed Robin.
It's not what I would call control.
In theory, Popclaw should be his most important refuge, but even in that relationship, A-Train acts cowardly and selfishly. He keeps the relationship a secret because Vought prefers to market him as single, he makes promises he doesn't keep, and he uses her when it suits him. After winning the race, he goes back to lying about her in public. And Popclaw, broken and humiliated, also ends up using Compound B and accidentally kills her landlord while she's high. When A-Train takes her to Cuba, it seems like he's finally gonna protect her, as if there was still some real love left. However, A-Train gets information out of her and then kills her by giving her a heroin overdose.
Why?
But we find out something even worse. He didn't do it of his own free will, but under pressure from Homelander.
Well, heroin overdose.
That doesn't make him a saint, but it does show us that to stay in that system, you have to sacrifice even the little bit of humanity you have left. That moment, to me, really reflects who A-Train is in that first season, because when he kills Popclaw, he becomes someone who, out of fear of losing his position, in the 7, he's capable of killing the one person who still saw him for who he was, outside of Vought's marketing. She saw him for who he really was.
The only good thing in my life is gone now.
The saddest part is that after that, A-Train spirals even more, becomes more obsessed, more paranoid. The guilt becomes just another pressure inside his head. I've sacrificed my girlfriend, so now I have to be the best. If not, that sacrifice will have been for nothing.
I'm not gonna sit here and watch you kill yourself.
When he fights with Hughie and Starlight, we see how he collapses because his way of living was already unsustainable. His heart gives out, and that pretty much sums up the kind of man he was at that stage. A man desperately running so he doesn't have to face himself. And the same guy who took A-Train's girlfriend ends up trying to revive him when he passes out. Hughie, who had every reason to let him die, acts with more humanity than the superhero himself.
He'll never stop coming for you.
I know.
And if you want to act with humanity like a superhero, take this chance and let me know down in the comments which character you'd like me to analyze. Anyway, the first season ends in a way where A-Train's guilt still hasn't made him better. Yeah, as a person, but it's already started to tear him up inside. And at the start of the second season, A-Train comes back after surviving the heart attack at the end of the first, but he returns exactly the same, arrogant and obsessed.
Yeah, here comes the A-Train!
And from there, the season starts to punish him. Where it hurts him most, his pride, because his spot among the seven is no longer secure. When he sees Shockwave and Ben Lator and talks to Ashley, Homelander tells him he's out of the seven because of his heart problem. A-Train had built his whole identity around being famous, being the fastest, basically being a star.
I doubt you're even cracking the top 20 anymore, and that makes a 7, me, look pretty ridiculous.
The moment his body fails, he realizes that to Vought, he's just a defective asset. And then A-Train starts to get a taste of his own medicine, because for years he lived off the benefits of a company that turned people into products, and that protected them from the biggest scandals.
You definitely just don't need that giant expo dump at the end.
It's such a taste of his own medicine that when they make his farewell movie, they make it look like A-Train left by his own choice. Another lie made up by Vought, but now covering up his firing.
I know this is Dawn of the Seven, the sunset on A-Train.
But even in his dismissal, A-Train is still deeply selfish. When he hears about the Church of the Collective, he doesn't take it seriously, saying he doesn't need any of that, until the church guy humiliates him, reminding him of everything that's wrong with him.
A-Train is a trademark. You are just another nobody from the south side of Chicago.
Then A-Train hears how they want to give the Deep his spot back in the seven, not him. Because, well, Stormfront is on Team Mustache Emo, so they can't even stand A-Train.
Oh, by the way, I heard they're retiring you? So unfair.
So A-Train steals Stormfront's files, and he gives them to Hughie and Starlight. That way, he gets her kicked out and gets his spot back in the seven.
Fuck that naughty bitch.
And when he's found out, instead of punishing him, they give him his spot back in the seven, but not because he earned it morally. It's just that the company needs diversity to cover up the shame of having had a Nazi on the team. It seems like a victory, but in reality, it's just humiliation disguised as a win. In the third season, he's still worried about his image, about keeping his place in the seven. But when he talks to his brother, he finds out that Blue Hawk has a history of racist brutality in black neighborhoods.
He was just walking home from work. Blue Hawk curb stomped him so hard it cracked the pavement.
When he tries to get Blue Hawk punished, the Deep steps in, and then Homelander doesn't back him up. A-Train wants to do something that seems fair, but he still doesn't have the strength to make it happen. But anyway, he manages to get Blue Hawk to apologize. And A-Train thinks he's achieved some kind of victory. He thinks that a public apology in front of cameras might help fix something. Ironically, he's resorting to Vought's typical tactic to cover up collateral damage. But before long, the whole charade goes to hell. Blue Hawk doesn't show any real remorse. Tensions rise and the situation ends in violence. And then Nathan, A-Train's brother, is seriously injured and ends up paralyzed.
The damage is so severe that Nathan will never walk again.
That moment breaks him in half. A-Train understands Hughie because now something similar has finally happened to him. A-Train experiences firsthand what it means for someone to turn a loved one into collateral damage.
You did not give a shit about all the collateral you caused then, Now all of a sudden you care?
Especially when he talks to Ashley. And you can really see this too when he apologizes to Hughie at that crazy Greek superhero party.
It's fucked up. Seeing somebody that you love get hurt like that. I'm sorry.
But it's not like he suddenly understands pain and now he's noble. Later, after talking to Hughie, he finds Blue Hawk and drags him down the highway at full speed until he turns him into grated cheese. Now, he does understand the pain, but he still doesn't know what to do with it.
Blue Hawk will live on because we gave you his heart.
And even though you might think that act of revenge would bring him closer to his brother, the end of the season does the opposite. In the final episode, his brother asks him to stay out of his life. Disgusted because A-Train killed Blue Hawk for selfish reasons, Nathan makes it clear that his revenge didn't fix anything.
I didn't want that. I wanted my kids to see his mugshot on the TV.
Even when, finally, he acts out of love for his brother, he still ends up hurting others and ends up pushing away the very person he wanted to protect.
But just stay out of my life.
And in the 4th season, we see how A-Train meets, secretly, with his nephews, and he tells them several stories about his heroic deeds. You can see how his nephews get excited. They see him as the star he always wanted to be. But then his brother shows up and says it was all a lie, made up by Vought, and his nephews suddenly lose that sense of wonder.
You never actually saved anyone. Yet here you are, lying to your own flesh and blood.
That leaves A-Train questioning his role as a superhero. If I never did anything truly heroic, can I really call myself a hero? And then M approaches him on the racetrack and appeals to what little conscience he has left.
You may have that racist white boy's heart up in you. You got a second goddamn chance to actually give a shit.
And to everyone's surprise, A-Train responds. He gives them the location of a meeting between Newman, Homelander, and Sage. That encounter with his nephews probably influenced that decision, because for the first time, instead of just protecting himself above all else, he starts working against the system from the inside. But he still does it with fear, with doubts. But the important thing is that he's starting to break free. When Hughie needs Compound V to try to save his father, A-Train ends up helping him. After getting the V, A-Train and Hughie shake hands and finally reach a real mutual respect. A real one that doesn't erase what happened with Robin, not by a long shot, but it's already a huge step toward his redemption. When he has a panic attack and collapses, A-Train risks his position to get him out of there and take him to the hospital. And that's exactly the turning point, because while he's rescuing him, a kid looks at him with admiration. And that shakes A-Train in a way that fame never could. For the first time, he feels what it's like to be a real hero, not just a product disguised as one.
That felt better than anything that I had ever done at Vought.
When Anna's about to give up the fight, A-Train tells him that when he took him to the hospital, he stopped hating himself.
'Cause for once, I didn't hate myself.
And that line shows that his redemption comes from the disgust he feels for himself and the momentary relief of having done for the first time what's right.
Reggie has been helping us out for a while.
But then we get to the 5th season, which starts off in the worst possible world for everyone. Homelander now has almost total control. Hughie, Frenchie, and MM are locked up in that re-education camp. Annie is trying to rally the resistance, and Butcher reappears with the virus. And in the middle of all that, A-Train is hiding. Now he's completely outside of the safety that Vought used to give him. He's finally a traitor to the monsters he spent half his life living with. And at last, his relationship with his brother has improved.
Mom will be really proud of you, man.
A-Train shows up at the camp to save Hughie, Frenchie, and MM. But during the escape, Homelander chases after him, and A-Train is about to get away. But in the middle of his run, he crosses paths with an innocent woman, and here he's faced with the ultimate test. Repeat the sin or break the cycle. In the 1st season, Robin died because A-Train kept running. She was just collateral damage. In the 5th season, A-Train chooses not to run over that woman. He dodges her, loses his balance, and crashes. And that allows Homelander to catch up to him. And when he's face to face with Homelander, he laughs at him and challenges him. He dies because, finally, he refuses to keep surviving at the expense of someone else's life.
What was I so afraid of?
For me, without a doubt, A-Train's redemption arc is one of the best in the series. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know in the comments below. Which other character from The Boys do you want me to analyze? Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.